You didn't forget about the CX-50 from Mazda, did you? Yeah, they have a brand new CX-5 hitting dealership showrooms right now, but this was originally supposed to be its replacement. But now since we have that new CX-5, I think it's about time we revisit the CX-50 and see why it's still a fantastic alternative to the super popular CX-5. One major benefit of getting the CX-50 over that new CX-5 is in engine choice. The only option on the new CX-5 is this model's base engine, which is a 2.5-liter inline-4, making 187 horsepower. You can get that here, or you can get the turbocharged version, which I have here, one of my favorite powertrains out there. This makes 256 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque if you use premium fuel, but if you use regular, those numbers drop down just a bit. But that makes this one of the most powerful options in the segment aside from the new Volkswagen Tiguan Turbo. The third option is a Toyota-sourced hybrid making 219 horsepower. That's the same powertrain you found in the last generation RAV4 and various other products in their lineup. And that's going to be the one you want if you want over 30 miles per gallon easily. That car is very, very efficient, and you get the same exact Mazda qualities you find here, just with that Toyota powertrain. However, if you want the most fun, definitely get the CX-50 Turbo while it still lasts, because that CX-5 losing the turbo makes me think that it's not long for the world here in the CX-50 either. Because there haven't been major updates to this model, nor has there been even a light refresh, my thoughts on front seat comfort have stayed the exact same the entire time this car has been out. And those thoughts are that it's one of the more comfortable cars and more comfortable driving positions in this segment. If you go into Mazda showrooms and you step into a CX-50 and then perhaps a CX-70 or 90, and then after that, the new CX-5, you're going to experience 3 different design motifs for their interiors. This particular interior goes back to about 2019 with the Mazda 3. That car introduced this generation interior theming, and it still holds up today, especially compared to others in the competitive set, even new ones that have just debuted. The telltale sign that this is not one of Mazda's latest interiors is with the piano black plastic. They use quite a bit down here in the center console, and that's an area with high traffic. Cups, keys, just knickknacks and items are always going to be thrown around in this area, therefore you're going to get some scratches and you're definitely going to get some fingerprints. Yes, it looks nice at first, but over time this starts to get so scratched up looking, even a year-old model will look like it's been beaten up and used for like 5 years. So that is something that the company has moved away from in the CX-70, 90, and the new 5, but we still see it here. Whether or not Mazda decides to give this car a refresh with an updated interior, we'll have to wait and see, but at the current moment, no word on that. One thing that sticks around in the new CX-5 and is of course here is the very soft and supple steering wheel. This is something that Matt Deegan commented on in his CX-5 first drive, and it is one of my favorite things about the Mazda interiors of this era. This thing feels like butter in your hands. It is just the softest leather wrapping I've ever felt on a steering wheel, and it just makes you want to get in the car and drive, because this is a place your hands are going to be most of the time. There is no hands-free driving assistant in this car, so even with the more advanced lane centering and lane tracing and adaptive cruise, yeah, you're still going to have to touch the wheel, and this is a pretty darn good one to have to touch. This interior also is a relic of the Mazda rotary scroll wheel era. This is probably one of the last cars you'll ever see Mazda use this in. The CX-70 and 90 kind of do a combination where they have the new interior look with the new materials, but they kept the rotary knob and the sort of touchscreen up at the top. And what I mean by that is, it's a touchscreen most of the time, but in some situations, if you're driving, it will lock out the touchscreen. But if you're using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, it will work. And I've noticed in the settings here, you can turn that off altogether, so the touchscreen can operate while you're driving. That is actually a setting you can change in the infotainment. This Premium Plus trim does have a head-up display. It's a pretty small and basic one, but it's nice to have. And as you move over to the dashboard, you'll see a mix of materials. Up top, injection molded plastic that's not super squishy, but it's not fully hard plastic. Then you have some sort of vinyl / leatherette wrapping here with the real stitching, the contrast stitching. This all looks very nice, though I do prefer the chestnut brown interior color they offer. That would go really well with this green color on the outside. Because this is not that new CX-5, you do still have physical controls for your air conditioning. So knobs, buttons, toggles, all you need. You don't have to go to the touchscreen, and that is going to be a deal breaker for a lot of you with that new CX-5, which is why I am so happy that the CX-50 will still be around to give you that extra choice in case you want this size, but you don't want that fancy all touch-based infotainment. Down in the center console, you will see a lot more buttons and controls than you will on the new CX-5, but you'll see about the same as you would on a CX-70 or 90 because, like I said, that interior design is very similar to this. Meaning you do have the control wheel, you have the 4-quadrant buttons to control certain functions and how to navigate the system, you have your parking brake and an auto hold button. Unfortunately, this is the type of auto brake hold that you have to turn on every time you get into the car, so keep that in mind if you do like that feature. You will have to press this button every single time. And finally, we have a favorites button and the volume knob. And the volume knob is in a perfect position right here where your right hand rests on the center console armrest. There is a sunglass holder here if you like to store your sunglasses like Mike Danger. Because I'm in a Premium Plus trim, that means we have the Nappa leather seats, and these have this nice sort of copper brownish accenting, this tube accenting in the leather design. It's very, very attractive for a black leather interior. Me personally, I have not sat in the new CX-5, but traditionally a CX-5 has a taller greenhouse, a taller cabin, and that's why a lot of people go for it because it does feel like it sits a little bit higher off the ground, even though this does have more ground clearance. But the overall just shape of the car and the atmosphere of the cabin is a little bit more open and airy in a CX-5, and I don't think that has changed with the new one, especially considering that it got bigger. But here in the CX-50, at 5'9", I still have gobs and gobs of headroom, especially with the panoramic moonroof. But even with the headliner right above the left side of my head, I'm 5+ inches away from it. So very, very good with the overall comfort of the front seats. Now, rear seat space might be one area where the new CX-5 does have a leg up over the CX-50 here. Though I do have plenty of space, I could have a little bit more knee room. My knees are pretty close to the back of the seat where I was sitting. So if you want more knee room, you have taller passengers, taller kids, you might want to look into that CX-5 or even jumping up to the CX-70, which is a model that Mazda created to give people the option of a 2-row that was much bigger than a CX-50 or 5. So if you need more space but you don't need a 3rd row, that's what the CX-70 is for. But here, again, it's very, very comfortable for me at my size. Now moving into the center seat, there is a hump down in the floor, and the back of this seat is a little hard, but that is to be expected in any car like this. On this top trim, you do have air vents back here in the center console, and 3 level heated seats in the outboard position, as well as 2 USB-C charge ports. So in summary, this is not the biggest back seat in the world, but it's also a very comfortable one. The seat backs themselves are just about as squishy and comfortable as the seats up front. The seat bottom is not too low, so I don't feel like my knees are up really high off the ground, but I can also squeeze my feet under the front seat. There's quite a lot of footroom down there, which is great.
Cargo capacity is certainly not at the top of the class, but it's still very accommodating. You've got 31.4 cubic feet behind the second row and 56.3 with the seats folded. The great thing is, going for the hybrid model does not mean you lose any space back here. Those numbers are the exact same for that electrified option. For comparison, the new CX-5 swallows 33.7 and 66.5 respectively, while the CX-70 bumps those numbers up to 39.6 and 75.3, giving you a trifecta of 2-row multi-purpose all-wheel drive crossovers all in the same showroom.
What you aren't going to find in that brand spanking new CX-5 is this turbocharged engine, and that is one of the main reasons why I still love the CX-50. But I did say earlier that, it's probably not long for this world. If the CX-5 is losing it, I can't imagine this car has much demand for it either, since this car doesn't even sell as well as the CX-5. However, we of course don't know sales figures on the new one because it just came out. But on this engine, the reason I love it so much is because even though it is using an older 6-speed automatic and is very, very thirsty, the sounds it makes, the smoothness of the inputs, the buttery smooth throttle response and brake feel, everything about it is just elevated over anything else in this segment. And I can't imagine that the new CX-5 loses any of that charm, but you just don't get quite the full package without this turbo engine. Because this is the most powerful version, we are also in the fastest CX-50 with a 0 to 60 time just a hair below 7 seconds, which is perfectly fine for 99% of people who will buy something like this. And the way the car accelerates, the way it goes about its duties, it's just premium feeling. It's just upscale. There's a touch of magic Mazda has that makes them able to give you that premium to near luxury driving experience without paying the price for it. And the other noises you hear, like I've mentioned, the engine note is very sweet sounding. It's just a pleasant engine note for a 4-cylinder engine. In fact, I would say this is one of the best sounding turbocharged 4-cylinder engines that money can buy. Even from luxury cars. I mean, there are some turbo 4-cylinders from the German manufacturers that don't sound quite as premium or refined as this one. So props to Mazda for being able to engineer, or in some cases out-engineer, the Germans. One other thing about this car and the Mazda 3 that have been very notorious for this generation of products is the fact that this platform uses a torsion beam rear suspension. Now for you, that just means the rear passengers are not going to see quite the same smoothness over rough pavement as the front passengers are. And most other cars in this segment do use fully independent rear suspensions, but somehow Mazda makes it to where you don't even really notice the difference. In fact, this still feels like the most well-balanced driving experience in this segment. It's super, super comfortable, not too firm. Like I'm going over bumps in the road right now, and yes, you feel them, but they're not, they're not bothersome. At the same time, you can still push this car in the curves. However, it's still a crossover. It's still a big, heavy crossover, so there's only so much you can do in that regard. This car is not riding on grippy summer tires, so you will hear tires squeal if you go through a traffic circle with too much haste. In terms of cabin noise, I think Mazda does a very good job at isolating you from the outside world, though you do hear a little bit more road noise than you do wind noise. Now this is not the Meridian edition, which rides on all-season knobbier tires. I've heard that those are a little bit louder and actually a little bit firmer on the street. These on the 20-inch wheels, they're actually perfectly fine. I have no complaints with the ride quality on these wheels. The other noise you will hear is the sound system. This is rocking the Bose Centerpoint sound system that was designed specifically for Mazda interiors with strategically placed speakers so they don't cause rattling in the door panels. And I will continue to say that this is absolutely the best sound system for under $60,000. It somehow masters the clarity and the balanced dynamics that I'm looking for in a sound system without giving you that muddled feeling or that muddled sound effect that you get from a surround sound system. So props to Mazda for still having one of, if not the best, audio systems. When the CX-50 first debuted, it did not offer any sort of lane tracing assist for the adaptive cruise control or just in general. And that is something that Hyundai and Kia have offered for a while, the ability to use lane tracing assist even when you're not using adaptive cruise control. But this car didn't even come with it at all before. Now it does come with it. You can turn it on by the steering wheel button right here that has a little steering wheel icon on it. And when you're using adaptive cruise on the highway, it will actually actively steer you through your curves. So it's no longer going to do any of that ping-ponging it used to do. However, the system is not quite as confidence-inspiring as Hyundai or Kia's or even Toyota's. So I'm glad to see they have it here now, but it's definitely also not a hands-free system. This is, even though Hyundai and Kia's system is not a hands-free system, you can actually take your hands off the wheel for a little bit longer than you can here. If you keep your hand off the wheel for more than 5 seconds, it's going to start yelling at you. One area where this car will definitely be inferior to the new CX-5 is in fuel economy, but that's only because they're not offering the turbo in the CX-5. You can only get the naturally aspirated version of this engine there, so obviously it's going to do better. But right now you can get this as the hybrid, as I've already mentioned, which you will have to wait at least a year for in the new CX-5. So if you want this experience, this car driving experience, the Mazda CX-50 or even the CX-5 experience, but you want the hybrid efficiency, the CX-50 is really the only choice you have right now, and I averaged about 19 miles per gallon here in this. You'll average well into the 30s with the hybrid, and probably well into the mid to high 20s with the naturally aspirated version.
The CX-50 is available in multiple trim levels, ranging from the 2.5 S Select for $31,395 all the way up to the fully loaded 2.5 Turbo Premium Plus for $44,395. You can bump that number up even higher by going for one of Mazda's extra cost paint choices or one of their many factory installed accessories. You can find these in the realm of outdoor adventure, camping, and even dog friendliness. This top trim is the only one in which you will find the 360-degree surround view camera system, the frameless auto-dimming rearview mirror, 2-person memory settings for the front seats, and the towing drive mode, as the turbo-equipped models have a 3,500-pound towing capacity versus the non-turbo's 2,000. The CX-50 Hybrid sheds a few trim levels from the mix, including the more adventure-oriented Meridian edition that's available with both the naturally aspirated 2.5 and 2.5 turbo engines. The base hybrid preferred trim starts at $36,245, while the hybrid Premium Plus tops things off at $41,945. That model comes with pretty much everything that this Turbo Premium Plus trim does, aside from the towing drive mode. So if 38 miles per gallon combined sounds more like your jam, we can't recommend the hybrid enough. But do us a favor, give this turbo a try and see if it doesn't move the needle for you. We'll definitely miss it once it's gone.
It is super rare, in fact, completely unique, honestly, for a car company to offer two models in the same segment, like the CX-5 and 50 here at Mazda. And though that wasn't the original plan for these two, I am glad to see that Mazda is going to continue to offer people the choice between them, because they each have their own unique personas and their own strengths and weaknesses. And luckily, since you can find them both in the same showroom, it shouldn't take you too long to decide which one's right for you. If you have already made that decision and are ready to make a purchase, Kelley Blue Book can help you find a fair purchase price with the link up here in the top right corner of your screen. Now, if it were my money, which compact Mazda crossover would I get? Definitely the CX-50. It starts at a hair below the new CX-5, has a more station wagon-y, rugged look that I admire more, and offers more powertrain diversity, at least for right now. Mazda is bringing their own dedicated hybrid system to that new CX-5 in a few years, or actually they're promising next year. But for now, if you want a hybrid in this category, you're gonna have to go CX-50. And for that, I'm gonna give it the leg up here.